Hey, Tamsen, how you doing today?
Good. How are you? Nice to see you.
It's nice to see you too. I am in your city today. I'm in New York.
Enjoying the rain. Enjoying the winter.
Well, I know I was talking, like people here, they complain about the rain, but the rest of the year I live in this place where there's a problem. Like rain does not fall from the sky,
No.
which is
Right.
more of a problem. So anyway, I don't
You're
mind the
right.
rain.
Okay, we won't complain. And plus, I see a sliver of sun or something out there right now, so it's good. It'll come your way.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk to you today, Tamsen, about community. So there's sort of community big C and community little c. And you've been very successful at forming a community on social media that's at scale. So I want to
Thank you.
talk to you a little bit about how you did that, how you relate to those people that, because like you're in their lives and they're in your lives. And then I want to sort of bring that back down to community little c. How do we build new people around us? Because if we don't do that, our social circles, our communities shrink, and that's no bueno. Okay.
Yeah. It's funny. I was thinking of both sides of that recently in my own life, looking at my dad who's 84 and looking at, where I am today and where I was 20 years ago. So I love that conversation.
So let's talk about community big C. So you've got, I don't have my phone in front of me. It's a big number, whatever it is. It's like in the millions of people. What is it about you and your message? Why do people spend time with you? What's going on there?
I don't know. It's funny. I was thinking about what it adds to my life. That's actually what I was thinking a lot about, because I think, I came from traditional media, where it was kind of a one-way conversation, right? I'm talking to the camera. I was giving the news. I gave the news for 30 years. And so that was a very direct one-way conversation. When social media, Facebook came onto the scene, we could read a comment or two on the air, but it really wasn't an interactive conversation. And I think when I moved over to digital and started playing around with just having conversations there, I brought that traditional approach to it. And it doesn't work there like that, because it's a real community, and it's a community that is flowing and active and wants to talk and wants to engage. And so when I started to take down that wall a little bit of who I was and take the filter off and take my makeup off and do things that I would never have thought I would ever do, that's when it all changed. Like, that is really when it changed. And I remember some of the conversations that I had with myself about it. Before I pressed the button to post, I'm like, oh gosh, is this a good idea? What are they going to say? Am I going to get mean responses? Are they going to not like me anymore? Or is it going to be weird? Am I too old? I had all these self-conversations, self-doubt. And then I realized there was a lot of room for all conversations out there, conversations about, aging, conversations about women's health, menopause, talking to younger people about what older people are going through, advice I'd give my younger self. So I think I don't think I did anything. I think that community wanted to have that conversation, and that's what's happened. And I watch them with each other. I think what's exciting for me is to go, when I meet those people offline now, so my community in person has look at you and I, like, it has changed quite a bit. And I consider you a friend, and I feel like I can pick up the phone and text you or call you or ask you something. And we wouldn't have been able to do that had it not been for this medium. So I just think it's really cool, and it's certainly changed my life.
Let's go a little bit more into this, what you were talking about there, this idea of presenting the perfect versus the imperfect, and how we're sort of programmed to, present our best face, which is not always what's really going on. And what was your process to move to that other space?
That took years. I think there were a few things. The pandemic happened, and really in 2020 is when I started that process. I think that I got older and I started laughing about some of the things that I took so seriously, like some of the things that I thought were so serious. I'd look down and I'm like, what was I thinking? And I also think that I had changes going on in my own life. I was in a relationship at 49, 50 years old. I had dealt with some health things that I was sharing online, and I saw a big response to that, and kind of did it in a quippy, fun way versus a serious way. And so those were two of the ways that it started, and two of the reasons that I did it. I don't know that I set out like, I'm going to jump on there and become a digital content creator. Like, I didn't even know the word. But I think that there was a need for that conversation and those voices that were maybe not in that space as much as we're seeing right now. Wouldn't you agree, like in the last 3-4 years, we've seen a big difference in that conversation happening on a larger level?
As a guy, it's even more like super confusing. But I will say that the times that I go on and I say like, I'm having a hard time. This is difficult. This isn't the way it was supposed to be. Why is it happening? Is when everybody steps up and I get this huge amount of support and information and essentially pats on the back. Like they're just telling me like, hey, it's going to be okay. And I find that not quite shocking, but surprising and really impactful to me.
Well, it is. And I also think it's because I for sure came from a place that was, you don't share your problems. Like you don't talk about that stuff. Like that's, you keep that to yourself and you do. So that was a hard flip for me in a lot of ways. And I still question every once in a while, like, oh gosh, I'm going to talk about my divorce again. Is that okay that I talk about my, every once in a while I feel that vulnerability, the old vulnerability creep back up and feel a little nervous about not having it all together. Right. My divorce from a long time ago, not now. But, I think that it's important. And I think that why I do a lot of my content to say like what I wish I knew in my 20s, 30s, 40s is because I probably wish I had that voice around me to say that it's okay that you don't have it all together. And it took me till, last few years to figure that out. But you're right. People do step up. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot of movement in some of these moments we're having, right? Because people are stepping up and saying like, hey, we want to be visible. We want to be seen. We want to make sure that people know they want to age, not just long, but well. They want to, share stories. What you do, sharing those stories, every time someone reads one of those stories, they walk away feeling like I could do that too, or maybe that could be me next. And that's a big deal. And so that's where I think that large community and all communities come into play, because that's what we want, stories from each other. That's what we want, to know that it's going to be all right. We're not alone and we can do something else and make an impact. That's what I want anyway.
That is wonderfully said. Yes. I was sort of reflecting on what you said, like, what would I tell myself when I was 20, 30, 40, 50? I would tell myself when I was younger is I would explain to myself how to self-soothe and self-congratulate.
Oh, that's good.
That's something that I've only learned. Like, Jesus, I'm 65.
Me too. Right.
Recently, here, I'll tell you this funny trick that I learned, that whenever I do something that I think is like, oh, that was pretty good. That was kind of scary. Okay. Physically, I take my right hand and I slap myself on my left shoulder. Out loud, I say, good job. You did great. I partially heard this from a 3-year-old who had a
I love that.
And they would constantly sort of like, you can do it. You got this. You can do it. And then when they did it, they were like, good job. And I thought, oh, that's really brilliant. Like, yeah, I can do that.
Do you feel different when you do that?
Absolutely. 100%. I've heard that it has chemically the same effect on us as if somebody else comes into the room and pats you on the back and says, good job. I mean, it's nice to have them do it, but if they're not there, you can do it yourself.
That's amazing.
It's amazing, right?
It is amazing.
So anyway, that's what I would teach my younger self.
I like the self-congratulate. That's a big deal.
Yeah, it's really good. I'm not the only one who's thought of this, but I use it and it works for me.
But, I do think it's so important because I remember, when I had done something that it was my very, very first book deal. It was like 2008. And the person I was talking to, I was like, yeah, it's exciting. Got a book deal. And I was like, anyway, there's so much work to do. And that was it. Like, I just blew past it. And he stopped me and he goes, you need to take this moment and like be in this moment. It was before we were talking about being present or, journaling or any of that. I was like, what? I'm being in the moment. I don't have time for this moment. I have to get to the next moment. But I'll never forgot that was a flaw of how I handled myself often. Of got a job. Okay. Yeah. We got the job. How are we going to move? How are we going to do that? Got this one. What's the next one? And while I think that I spent 30 years in television news saying coming up next, and even have named quite a few different things that I've done over the years, that I think the important part of it is taking that moment to self-congratulate and to realize what you've done, because I don't think you can get to that next thing without it.
I almost think that we become operational like that just because I think it's somehow for us to own the moment, like when we do something good, to just own it is like scary in some way. Like we don't want to do that.
Like you're scared you're going to lose it, or it's ego, but it might be the same thing we're talking about with online. Like online, we would never complain, or never, not complain, but like talk about our vulnerabilities. And maybe it's the same way. You're not supposed to be so prideful that you don't acknowledge. I mean, maybe we look at it through the wrong lens. Like you're not supposed to be so, with yourself that,
like you don't deserve
appreciate it quietly and move on. Right. Or you don't deserve it.
Clearly, I don't deserve
or you don't deserve it.
Let's just get out of this before somebody realizes I don't deserve this.
before they realize it's, truthfully, every once in a while I just go, wait, what? Did they have the wrong? I literally had a phone call last night, and I went into my husband. I'm like, sometimes I wonder, since we were just on the phone and we weren't on video, if maybe she thought she was calling somebody else. And so he goes, what are you talking about? And I go, I don't know. Like, I was like so shocked that they want that. Really, I think that everybody goes, I mean, not everybody, but I think a lot of people go through that. I think a lot of people call it imposter syndrome, but it really is even, I think, more than that. I think it just is that, like, I don't know that I deserve this, and I hope I'm not found out. And I think that that's like, that I can't do this, or I can't write this, or, or perform this, or speak, or whatever it is. It's kind of fascinating. I think it keeps you humble, but I think it can also be very hurtful.
Like if we declare like, okay, wow, this is great, I did this. Then we have to, suddenly we have to become that person. Like then we have to sort of level up to be the sort of person who does these sort of things. And I'm thinking, oh no, I don't. Can we just like bring our heads down? And I don't want, that's a lot of work. I don't want to be that person.
You're so right. I don't want to fail. So let's not go to that next level. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's, and the last few months I've left my job, and it's going to be coming on 3 months. Every once in a while I'm like, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Am I all here? I'm not patting myself. I'm like touching to make sure it's like, I don't know, because it is very, it's frightening. And it's frightening when you go into some of these new identities, I think too, as you get older or as you move into something else, to convince yourself that it's all going to be okay. You always have to have somebody else do it for you. But I like your self-congratulating.
I do it secretly though. Like
You do? You don't make a scene of it? Well, okay, let me see. Let me see what it looks like.
Well, it's like, good job. You did it. Good job. Like, just like that.
You say it out loud?
I say it out loud. Yeah. I like physically tap myself and I say it out loud. And
I like it.
I'm not brave enough to do that around other people. I think they would really question my emotional foundation if I did that.
Next time you have to give a keynote when it's done and everyone's clapping, I want you to go, good job. You did a good job.
I got to give this big talk at this financial thing in Kuala Lumpur, and they're going to be all these bankers and stuff. And I do this thing, and then I do that on stage.
I love that. I would pay money to see that. I think it would be great. I think people would love it.
Well, there's a clawback clause in that contract, and we're executing it now.
You just violated section. I love it.
I want to talk to you about community literacy.
Yeah.
So about, there's a crisis of loneliness.
Yeah.
And the thing is as you get older, unless you really put some effort into it, your world is going to shrink. It's just guaranteed. Yeah. Talk to me about that. How are you navigating that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I live in New York, and it's like a city with so many people. And I've realized a lot of my friends have moved out, moved away. A lot of them are, they're in another place. They live in 2 places. And I had this one weekend that nobody was around. My husband was in California. Nobody was around. I was like, I'm lonely. Like there's nobody. I don't, and I realized that my world has gotten smaller. I left my job too, so there was that group. So I have started to do a couple of things, and I don't know, it's kind of weird, but I always make a list of 5 people I haven't been in touch with for a while, and I try to get to that by the end of the week. So I, just even if it's a text message or a hello or something, because I don't want to be the person that's like, hey, I need something now. And I want it to be like, we have a meaningful relationship. And so I want to, I think there's people that dive in and out of our lives that sometimes we lose touch with for one reason or another because something else distracts us. But then those people really mean something to us. And so I really try to be cognizant of that. So I'm not that person that doesn't have somebody that I can pick up the phone and call or can pick up the phone and call me. But I have had to get myself out a little bit. And I've done that because I watched my dad, who's 84, move to a new city. And he is like going to this, it's called SuperAgers, this group that meets in the morning. There's like 8 people in Tampa that meet and they like, get together. He goes to his like church group. He goes to his gym. He meets people goes out to restaurants by himself. And he is determined to make sure he keeps doing that, even though a lot of his friends have passed away. And so I was like, if he can do that, I should be doing that too, because I think it's really, really hard as we get older. We get set in our ways. We might be traveling more. We might be with our significant other more. We might be dealing with other problems. And I think that sense of community is really necessary and really special. And I think that's kind of what we're all here for in the end.
So what's your strategy so you got your like 4 or 5 people for every week, people that you know.
Different ones. Mm-hmm.
But you want to add. You need to
add.
Nourish and add. What's your strategy?
I mean, mine has been following what my father is doing, which is like, I'm never the person that like actively goes out to go, because I was in news for so long and meeting people constantly. I'm like, I need to be alone and watch Netflix. And so now I'm not doing that job anymore. And so I do need that. So I've done group classes. That's one big thing. And I've done a couple of little things because I go back and forth between here and in California. And so I've found some different ways to go meet people, whether it's sitting outside, because you can be outside a lot more, sitting outside at a restaurant or a coffee place and just like being friendly with people, which everyone's like happy in the sunshine, I think. So I don't do that as much in New York. And I try to get off of online to find people. Like if I have found a lot of people that are online that go to some of the same similar things that I go to. And women's health is a big thing for me. So I find myself going to a lot of those different events and signing up for them and showing up where I wouldn't do that before. I would never have. If you told me I was going to buy a ticket and go somewhere, I'm like, no, I'm not. But I do that now. And I feel good after I leave there. It feels really good. And I think I needed it.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're a joiner, or you become a joiner. You're a new joiner. Is that right?
I'm a new joiner, really new.
A tentative
I'm a real new joiner. I've not been a throw events thing yet, but I would like to do that somehow. And I've had like little dinner parties and stuff, but I'm more of a new joiner, very new, because it's still a little intimidating to me, to be honest. As open as I am on social and stuff, like if I go to a party or something, I'm like, I don't walk up to a group and like, hi, I'm Tamsen, and let's do a selfie. That's not me. I do it with you.
We actually have it within our power, all of us, to cause these meetings to happen. So we can like invite people over, we can have a party.
Yep.
I do this sort of silly medieval thing. I don't often have parties like twice a year. So what I do is I have a stool.
I better be at your next party.
You will be, because it'll be in New York.
Oh, good. Thank you.
So
I invited myself. I'm a joiner. I'm a new joiner.
There you go. Evidence. You are indeed a joiner. So I sit on a stool by the door where people come in. And when someone comes in, whatever else is going on, I tell everybody, stop. This is my friend Bob. Bob is here because of XYZ. This is what Bob does. And the reason you like Bob, the reason I like Bob, or you're going to like Bob, is this. I become like,
oh my gosh, I love this.
The announcer, right? And then, of course, Bob.
I love that idea.
Bob's like, oh my, you've like exposed me. But they get over really quickly. And then everybody sort of knows something about everybody. There's some context. That's my party trick.
I love. That's great. I love that so much.
Yeah, it's fun.
Where did you think about that?
I once went to an event that Monocle magazine threw, and Ty Relay, who's the longtime editor-in-chief, was sitting at a stool, and they were larger events. There were like, 50, 80 people. But if you came in, you could not enter the event before being greeted by Tyler. Now, he didn't announce the person.
I love that.
He greeted everyone personally, so he didn't he wasn't in the middle like getting sequestered by somebody. No, his job
Yep.
was to sit in the front and greet everybody and say hello before they went in. And I just sort of took it a little further.
I love that because I think that that's a cool way to do it. Instead of like, I had a dinner party here for family, but I was like kind of lumped everyone in and I was like, oh, let's introduce yourselves instead of, how rude of me. I should have done that.
You can just take control and like
I love it.
manifest that. But it's the same thing that we do like on social or like any of these things. We're sort
Yeah,
of the center that people connect with, so we can
that's
do it
great.
IRL too. So yeah,
That's great. I
good
love
trick.
it. I love it. I like how you're so thoughtful about your life.
So do you have any advice for other people? Because there's a lot of people that are just, it's really hard for them, you know?
I think it's hard. I
Yeah.
think it's really hard. I do. I really do. And I found myself doing a couple of different things. I did it the other day. The 92nd Street Y is here. And I just think
Yeah.
it's a cool New York place. But I was like, what events are coming up? And I'm going to two of them, period. And so that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying because you know that you're going to be there. You're going to meet people. You're going to talk to people. That's one kind of thing. And it doesn't have to be like so regimented, but I do think you have to get out there and put yourself out there and not be afraid. Because you know what happens to all of us? I think all of us go back in time to the time, like I was never chosen for anything in gym class because I'm not an athletic person. But we all go back to that, like, am I going to be picked? Right. And so it's scary to put yourself out there. I think at 53, I still get that when I go into a party, like, oh gosh, am I going to know anybody? Am I going to have to like smile at people and hope somebody comes up to me? So I think that you've got to put yourself out there to those kind of things in your community. And if you're like, there's no place for me to go, there is a place to go. But there's something, whether it's an activity or a hobby or whatever it is, there's something out there to go to, even no matter how big or small. I also think that I have been kind of being a tag along with some of my friends if they have stuff going on. So, for example, I'm going to Florida next week, and I called a friend of mine and I said, I'm going to be there by myself. Like, is there anything going on that you're going to? And she said, I'm going to another friend's party if you want to come. And I'm like, okay. But I would never have done that before.
Yeah. So I was at an industry event last night that I was invited to go to,
Mm-hmm.
and I had the same thing happen. And there's maybe like 50 or 60 people. And I go in there and I think, I'm going to have a glass of water and I'm going to leave. And it somehow, from like the recesses of my brain, I managed to remember the line. And the line that works everywhere, wherever you are, is, hi, what brings you here tonight? Boom. Okay.
Really?
So, yeah, it doesn't
How
matter.
it brings you
Like,
here tonight. Okay.
you're at a
That's
play,
good. I like that.
you're at a party, you're
Right.
like, you're at an event, it's like whatever. So suddenly that you got the person to like talk to you, right?
That's great. That's
And
great.
yeah, well, hi, what brings you here tonight? And then once one person talks to me, then I'm good, right?
Because then you've got like a
I'm okay.
friend.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Yeah, you've got like a
Yeah.
friend.
I'm in the
Oh, I
swim,
like that.
everything's cool.
I like that.
I can talk to somebody else. It's the first one. I just lock up. Like you can see, I'm
I
a
just
pretty
lock
gregarious
up.
person, but I just sort of
Me too.
freeze. Yeah, like we may both
too.
make our living doing this, and we just like, I can't talk. There are new people here. They'll
This is
hate me.
me.
Yeah,
I'm like
I
this
got,
at a party.
yeah, right.
That's me at everything. I'm like,
I think I'm gonna look at my
please
social
someone
media
talk to
right
me.
now. This
I
like I really
know.
need to
I'm
look
like,
at that
I'm gonna
right now.
be. I have to. There's an emergency on
Yeah,
TikTok. I just like. I really. I know. I'm with you. I'm
yeah,
totally with you on that. But I think it's nice. Like 10 years ago, when you and I have said this to each other, I would have been like, well, I really, I go to as many events as possible and I try to really just meet people. And, I have a big group of friends that we've been like, that's not true. The truth is that most of my friends have moved away. They're doing other stuff. Like some don't want to go out and do that kind of stuff. And I got to figure it out now. But I will say this. Realize now when I have a problem where I'm worried or fretting about something that we know is going to get solved at some point or another, it is those people that I can text or pick up the phone and talk to. And there's a handful of them, but that make me feel like it's all going to be okay. And that's what that community is about. That's what that small community is about.
yeah, yeah.
And I need that. I think we all need that.
I think that this is where my gender has a bit of a handicap, sort of a
Yeah.
built-in malfunction. It's very
Yeah, for sure.
hard for us.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's hard in general, but yeah, it is. It's hard for you to do that reach out of when there's a problem. Yeah, my husband has the same thing. I'm like, who do you talk to when you feel stressed? And he goes, I'm like, yeah, like who do you tell that to?
Why would I do that?
And he doesn't know, what are you talking about?
So I want to okay, I'm just going to give people another tip on this community thing. So tip one, you say like, you just need to interact. So if you're in a group, new group,
Yeah.
it's hi, what brings you here tonight? Super easy.
What brings you here tonight?
But if it's
I'm
not,
writing this down.
if it's not a community, you just say, like my favorite thing is the shoes. Hey, those are great shoes. I like those. Whether you like them or not, doesn't matter.
Really?
You just notice them. Right. So
you just start them.
Because
everybody's got shoes on, probably.
Everybody's got shoes on.
All right.
And
Most
they just,
people. Right.
they
right.
know that you noticed them. So now they're like, oh,
Yep.
thank you. And
Yep.
in the first context, you say like, oh, what brings you here tonight? So they'll say like, maybe they cut it really short. They're like, well, I'm in the whatever widget industry.
I know the host.
I know the host.
Right.
You need to follow it up.
What's the follow-up
trick
line?
is getting them to talk about themselves, which is it's everybody's favorite subject. They just need to activate, right? So it's like, oh, tell me about that. That's so interesting. You came all the way from St. Louis here to like talk about widgets. Wow, that's amazing. Tell me more.
Widgets.
And boom, you got a new friend for life.
We're off to the races. Friend one.
Somebody's interested in the widget industry. That's so great.
But I agree with you. I like that. I wrote that down. What brings you here tonight?
What brings you here tonight? Yeah.
I'm going to try that. But my favorite thing is the announcing people at the door.
Oh,
that's
thanks.
my favorite. No, my favorite might be this.
my little quirks. The announcing people thing at the door is very sort of, I feel very medieval. I'm at the king's court.
Totally.
I'm the one who announces the guests, like rings the bell, and now presenting the princess of whoever.
The king of, well, because most people want to like slide in and be like, oh, I was a half hour late, or I was 10 minutes late.
No.
Let me just get in here and like get my bearings.
No.
That doesn't happen at my parties.
There's no
Here's
anonymity.
Tamsen. She's 15 minutes late. Yep.
This is Tamsen. She's late. We still love her.
But it's why I like her. I love it. That's great. It's really great.
Okay, you got a split. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you. You always make my head think, and I love it.
We're going to hang out. I'm going to be in New York more, and I hope to see you and finally meet your husband, and we'll do like a double date.
Perfect. I would love that. I would love that.
Okay. Thanks so much. Have a great rest of your night.
You too.